Ron, here's something else I can draw your attention to. Let's look at content sales, licensing, and other. The primary revenue drivers there are movie theaters and Broadway, Disney Broadway, like the Lion King up there in New York where you're at. So content sales, licensing, and other, $7.1 billion of revenue. That also includes Disney's music licensing division. That also includes some post-production services offered by Industrial Lights and Magic and Skywalker Sound that they acquired through the Lucasfilm purchase. Look at the operating income or losses for that division. They lost $1 million in that. That was in the quarter that Avatar came out. They lost $1 million in that division. In the next quarter, where Avatar continued its run, they had a couple other movies. Broadway was opening back up some more. Blah blah blah. They made $83 million, a pittance compared to the $3+ billion for ABC and cable stations. Basically, July, they lost $112 million in that division.
Billion.
So they
112.
112 million.
Right.
Is the loss because it's stated in millions on the report.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
So I mean that's we tell people that Disney's been losing their butt at the box office. This is why, and the reason the losses only on this report are showing as small as they are is because there are other things in that division that are propping up the losses. Again, Disney music licensing, Broadway ticket sales, things like this. Where the Broadway shows have been making money for Disney, they're just not. They're not a major revenue driver for the company like Parks or like ESPN is.
There's not a theater big enough that you could sell tickets at any price that would ever have that kind of impact.
No. And look, you go down here for the first time, we saw this operating results for DTC. Subscription fees, you can see were $12 million for the 9 months ended. So that's everybody paying their monthly dues for Disney Plus and for Hulu. The portion that Disney keeps of Hulu, at least. Advertising revenue on direct-to-consumer, $2.4 billion. The lion's share of that is from Hulu. And I know we have a fan out there. I know KMG has talked about this on our show before, who can probably tell you for sure that that's mostly Hulu. Disney Plus's advertising tier is not there yet. So when you look down here, when you look at things like the operating expenses, that's mostly the cost of production for Hulu and for Disney Plus. $13.6 billion worth of.
But we still got to run the business. So, Ron, don't get distracted. We had 14.8 come in, and we lost two. Yeah, we lost two. Don't focus here, Ron. Let's go back to you buying the other thing that we talked about, okay? Because that's just because we don't know what we're doing here doesn't mean you shouldn't want to buy the thing up there.
Right. So,
here's the other thing, too. How many times have they had these kinds of operating losses? When you add it up, you start to realize the kind of hole that they have to dig out of for this to have ever made any kind of investment sense. And it's a lot.
And we're still got a long way to go. And they now have less than 12 months to turn DTC profitable. Because that's what they promised.
I better get my dividend. I've been waiting for. I was promised a dividend by
December 31st. You're going to get your 2 pennies, Mike. They'll declare the 2 pennies. But let's look down here, kids. This is where things really get fun. TV and SVOD distribution. Now, this is quirky because the way that they seem to indicate in the guidance that I did in the video the other day, talking about all the details of how this is kind of broken down, that this is quote unquote third-party revenue for TV and SVOD distribution of Disney IP. The problem, of course, that we know is that Disney, and this is not sneaky, Universal does this with Peacock, and Paramount will do the same thing with Paramount Plus for the movies it makes. Disney Plus technically is a third party to this division. Okay, because it's a different sub-corporate entity from this area of Disney that does theatrical.
But Valiant, once upon a time, this company licensing of their content was a profit center, not a tool to be used to hide losses on the books, and that's what's happened now.
Yes, exactly, Mike. So as we look across TV SVOD distribution under revenues on the bottom half of this chart, $713,795,60, $2 billion in TV and SVOD distribution that, as Mike correctly just pointed out, used to largely come from actual third parties like Netflix. When Netflix was paying Disney billions of dollars a year to get all of those MCU titles in phases 1 through 3 after they left the theater, they'd get to go to Netflix, and Netflix paid Disney a fortune for those things. Now it's all coming inside from Disney Plus for the vast majority of it. Theatrical distribution, folks, we have never seen this from Disney before. This is the actual rentals that come back from AMC, Cinemark, Regal, all the stuff that we've told you about on Valiant Renegade for 2 years. Theatrical distribution in the quarter that we got Wakanda Forever, Strange World, and the first 2 big weeks of Avatar: The Way of Water, $1.1 billion. $767 million in the next quarter when Avatar still continued its massive run, okay, for the next 2 months. And then you had Quantumania, and I think that was about it for that quarter. And then July 1st, 2023, $838 million. That was combined between Guardians of the Galaxy, The Little Mermaid, and the first day of Indiana Jones. Oh, and Elemental, I'm sorry, was in there as well. Elemental came out 2 weeks before. So that includes a lot of Elemental. Now, Elemental legged out and bled into the next quarter as well. But I want you to look down here. Total revenues, right? Operating expenses. Again, we're talking about a lot of production costs. Look at those numbers. They're way bigger. They're way bigger. Okay. Home entertainment distribution up there, $185 million. Where my cursor.
And I've got a question about home entertainment.
That's Blu-rays and DVDs and 4Ks and stuff like that.
Does it include video game sales or no? Which I know is not even a big deal in Disney.
They specifically list that as physical media sales for. I don't think video games are included in that.
I just don't know the answer to that. So I
don't think they guided towards that.
So for those playing at home, we brought in $7.188 billion, and we still managed to lose $30 million.
Yes, because and look, what do we talk about with marketing budgets? Okay, now of course they're marketing television shows, big things that come out on Disney Plus and stuff like this, but. A lot of that is the marketing budgets for these films that we talk about, selling general and administrative, SGA. This is where Disney is spending $150 million to market The Little Mermaid.
And these are the softest of the soft costs. These are the travel and entertainment, and marketing in general is an entirely soft discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you need to pay for media, but how many media placement staff do you need? How many? These are the galas. These are the all that.
Oh yeah,
and that is where you get to throw large dollars away. Obviously, what we're seeing is they're doing it on production as well.
Yes. And Ron, your point's right. Because think about this. Every time you have a major movie premiere and they were sending these actors all over the globe to do all these major red carpet events, these multi-million-dollar events, yes, all of that goes into the marketing budget of that film and falls under SGA down here, selling general and administrative under this division. Look at what they're spending. $750 million in that first fiscal quarter of 2023. $550 million, $500 million the next. Another $750 million leading into July. Why? Because just do the math. Look at the movies. They had 3 major releases in the quarter that ended December 31st. They had 2 releases that ended in the quarter that ended April 1st. Or no, I'm sorry, really just 1. They bled into some of that with what was coming up for Little Mermaid. And then in July, of the quarter that ended July 1st, you had 3 major releases again. You had Guardians, you had Little Mermaid, you had 4. You had Guardians, Little Mermaid, Elemental, and Indiana Jones.
And furthermore, some people who, if you look up those box office and compare them to these numbers, you'll be like, well, I thought Disney brought in all kinds of other money. No, the money being reported here is after the foreign and domestic splits. This is the money that actually came back to their bank accounts, which is far lower than we see on the box office numbers.
But yeah, that's where we are. Pro, any thoughts on this real quick? I'm going to grab some super chats.
Well, I think here's the one point I would make is that if you look at those revenues off of theatrical distributions,
mm-hmm.
there have been, although not many, but there have been movies that came really close all on their lonesome to topping some of those numbers. That's how far Disney has fallen, where it's taking 6 movies, 5 movies to earn these kinds of revenues. And then with all that other stuff, like the other, category, who knows what that is? With all of that other stuff, they still are unable to hide the losses in the theatrical releases.
I can tell you what other is, because they do give us color on what other is. That is mostly ILM and Skywalker Sound. And
I got you, from other companies.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, other companies and Disney itself. So, I mean, if a Disney production uses ILM and Skywalker Sound, they're paying it out there. They're paying.
Then you would have to go to a different spot on the spreadsheet to find the expenditures that are going into that one, into the other. Correct.
That's under operating expenses. So the operating expenses for the production of the movie, that some of that might wind up showing as revenue under other.
Yep.
Because of ILM, Skywalker Sound, and Disney Music licensing. Those are the 3
left
biggies.
Pocket meet right pocket, right pocket meet left pocket.
That's it. But I mean, you're right. When you're talking about, some movies have done this on their own. Look at the quarter ended April 1st, $767 million. Or look at the quarter. Hell, let's take July 1st. They had, forget Indiana Jones for a second, because that was only out for a day. They had 3 major titles come out. They brought in $838 million of rentals back from the box office on those 3 titles up to July 1st. Spider-Man No Way Home brought that back for Sony in 1 movie.
Right. Exactly.
That's it. That's the problem. And Spider-Man No Way Home had a budget that was similar to all 3 of the movies in this quarter for Disney individually.
Which puts it at 1/3 of the expense. You get all that back, and you split it with Sony too. So how's that?
Yeah, Disney got 25% of that.
Right.
So yeah, that's where that is. But yeah, so there are pages in the Report Pro that show, each of these, like what is other, what stipulates is, or what constitutes theatrical distribution, what constitutes other. It's all written in this. I went through that in the video that I did. So that's why I didn't want to go through it again tonight, but since you brought it up, that is what that is from. So yeah, we do have guidance on what all of these are bit by bit. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.